Why is there nowhere good in my car to balance my phone?
Fun fact, when I move my glasses up onto the top of my nose, you can't even tell that I have eyebrows. So these two travesties that I have painted onto my forehead this morning can be easily ignored. What do Steve Jobs, Aretha Franklin, and myself have in common? I mean, you'd probably say nothing at first, but strangely enough, I do have something in common with both of them. Something very oddly specific and mildly unfortunate. And that would be a neuroendocrine cancer diagnosis. Now, those of you who have decided to click on this video are probably wondering what the heck is that, and that's perfect because I am hoping to communicate that with people. I'm hoping to bring awareness to neuroendocrine cancer, and that's what this video is about. I'm trying to put myself out there anyways as, I guess, a bit of a symbol of... Please don't mind my husband in the background. He's a very hard-working man. Please, I know he's a little distracting, but please try to disregard. Here, I'll just... maybe that'll help a little bit. But, yeah, I'm hoping that I can possibly, in a way, be used as a symbol of awareness for this disease, as well as a reminder that it's not just old people that get cancer. Literally anybody is vulnerable to cancer, and we need to be aware of the signs and the symptoms, and even more so when it's something rare, because I mean, I never thought I would be diagnosed with something really weird and really bizarre like this, and it took such a long time to get diagnosed. But maybe if I can just help one person reach a diagnosis before it being in the end stages, then I can feel good about that. So me, Steve, and Aretha. Neuroendocrine cancer. What are the chances? Mine is a little bit different, as both of theirs, their primary tumors started in their pancreas. Mine started in my small intestine. Those are both fairly common. Those are both fairly common areas for neuroendocrine tumors, I guess. Neuroendocrine cancer is a very weird, very sucky cancer. Unfortunately, it usually takes 3 to 7 years to get a diagnosis, so people will be wandering around with symptoms and going to different doctors and getting different diagnoses for unfortunately, the incorrect thing. It's commonly misdiagnosed as irritable bowel syndrome, asthma, and what I went through actually is my doctor told me that I had severe anxiety and was blaming all of my symptoms on anxiety. So when I received a neuroendocrine cancer diagnosis, I was 19 years old, which is pretty crazy every time I think about it. But what was even crazier is after I received this diagnosis and I began to learn about it, I found out that the instances of this cancer is about 2.5 to 5 people in every 100,000. I thought, that can't be right. Like, I can't even get a decent profit off of a lottery ticket, yet somehow I won the 2 out of 100,000 cancer lottery? Like, geez, what did I do to deserve this, right? But even though there's so few people that actually knowingly have it now, it's actually about 2%, it accounts for 2% now of cancers worldwide, and it's considering one of the fastest growing classes of cancer, not in terms of like how aggressive it is, but just the most cases being discovered on a yearly basis now, which is a little bit scary considering we don't know what causes it, and a lot of people don't know that they have it, and they go for years without knowing that they have it, unfortunately, which is what happened to me. So you're probably wondering what the symptoms are of this disease. Like, what kind of weird symptoms do you get from this kind of disease? Well, let me tell you about that. So there's a syndrome that's associated with neuroendocrine tumors, and it usually only starts to occur once the disease has spread from a primary tumor into the liver. Not always, but it usually just starts to occur after that, and it's a syndrome that's called carcinoid syndrome. Carcinoid syndrome is an absolute living hell and one of the worst syndromes known to man in my experience. So since this is like a hormonal cancer, the symptoms that you get are a result of these excess hormones releasing into your bloodstream, and it really doesn't feel good at all. Most of the most common symptoms are flushing, like a red burning flushing of the face, diarrhea, like gastrointestinal problems for a good number of people, or in my case, tachycardia, like heart rhythms irregular, just like beating really fast, racing, being unable to breathe, very short of breath, feeling like you're having a heart attack and you're not having a heart attack, but all these hormones are just going absolutely crazy inside your body, and you don't know what to do about it. You don't know whether you need to go to a hospital, you don't know if this is normal, if this is just some like weird hormonal change you're going through, but I mean, how are you gonna guess that it's just some weird, crazy, rare disease? You're obviously not gonna tell yourself that that's what you have, right? Because, I mean, as much of a hypochondriac as I was as a teen, I did not think I had anything like this. Neuroendocrine tumors form in cells that interact with our nervous system or in hormone-producing glands. And those cells are called neuroendocrine cells. Neuroendocrine cells can basically be found anywhere in our body. So as scary as that sounds, it is basically when shit goes down in those neuroendocrine cells that you've got to worry and you've got a problem. I'm sorry if I sound a bit like a robot spewing facts here. It's just whenever I try to explain this disease, I've done so much research on it that I feel like I just start spitting out facts like the way that I have them memorized exactly in my head, and I start to sound a bit robotic, so I'm sorry. That is not my intention. I've taken a few notes and things just stick in my head a certain way so that they sound a bit unnatural when I start to convey them. But it's okay. It's okay. I can do this. I've got this. All right. So it's a really long story. I'm gonna try and condense it. I don't know where to start, honestly, but I guess I'll just start where I usually start. So I was diagnosed with this disease at 19 years old. Before the age of 19, though, I had a fair number of symptoms, especially like in the couple of years leading up to my diagnosis were the worst symptoms. I would get a very, very flushed face when I would get stressed out. Like, this has never happened to me up prior into my life, having like such a flushed, burning red face, and accompanying that would be very bad shortness of breath and just feeling so winded and having to sit down. And also I would get these cramps, like these horrible abdominal cramps, and all this would happen like at the same time, and my face would swell up a bit and get kind of white and puffy. Things started to get a lot worse. They started to progress very quickly, and then we started to think that, okay, whatever this is, it's very bad, and we still have like a clean bill of health in terms of all the tests that we've done. All the blood work is normal. There's nothing that we really need, that we're not getting any answers here at all. We weren't getting any answers. And finally I had an MRI done, and I think a CAT scan. And I think, like, this is probably gonna sit with me the rest of my life. What pisses me off the most is years before my diagnosis, when I had this MRI done, it showed spots all over my liver, and my family doctor told me that they were probably just cysts, even though it was the only thing that was somewhat abnormal out of all the tests we did, and we chose to ignore these spots all over my liver, and we chose to go with my family doctor's belief that these cysts were just cysts. And I mean, I'm sure that you can figure out at this point they were not cysts. They were left to just grow and do whatever. But yeah, they were completely ignored. I went to a gynecologist appointment, I think, about a half a year later. And at this point, I had actually had another MRI done that I didn't know the results of, because we rescanned. Thankfully, my doctor was at least... Oh, sorry, hit my steering wheel there. Thankfully, my family doctor was at least being a little bit somewhat proactive in the fact that we should at least look at these spots and not completely forget about them and rescan them. And so we did. And I went to this gynecologist appointment, this completely unrelated to the liver MRI, but I went to this gynecologist appointment and he was pulling up records on me just to try and like see my most recent health records. And he pulled up something in the system. It was completely by accident. It was my most recent MRI that I had done for keeping an eye on these spots on my liver. He opened it by accident and he saw me looking at it, and I read over his shoulder that the spots had grown, and then he turned around and he lied right to my face and he said, "Oh no, I don't, I know that you were having like this issue in your abdominal region, but it's fine. It's not, well, it doesn't look like they've grown. It looks like it's completely fine." I had just read over his shoulder that the spots had grown in the medical document, and obviously he's a gynecologist. This isn't his area of expertise. I feel like he just didn't want to deal with it, but I remember just the shock and the sick feel, the wave of just sickness that washed over me when I read those results. Very inappropriately in a gynecologist's office, who should not be the person that is relaying this kind of information to me. But yeah, it was a mistake, I guess, when he was going through my health records. And so a few months before I got diagnosed, I continued to go back to my family doctor, who was continuing to diagnose me with the anxiety, the iron deficiency, till I came back telling him the iron pills aren't working. I'm still having very bad shortness of breath and bad heart issues and arrhythmias and things like that. And he looked through a book. He was very puzzled. He pulled up 2 different things and he said, "Well, there's a couple of things here that I guess could be relevant to your tests that are on the cysts that we've seen on your liver that correlates with your symptoms, and one was sarcoidosis and the second was carcinoid syndrome." Both things that I thought sounded very scary and I'd never heard of, but he didn't investigate them at all, but he just mentioned them to me just as something that he said, "Oh, I don't think you have that, but it's a possibility." And so, of course, me being the hypochondriac that I am, for good reason, like reasonably being a hypochondriac at this point, being as sick as I was at the time, I went home, I Googled both of those things, and what I found when I Googled carcinoid syndrome was like a mirror image, I guess you could say, of the symptoms that I was dealing with. The flushing, the gastro symptoms, the reactions to stress, the what they called tumors on the liver causing these symptoms. And I mean, as much as I hoped that wasn't what I had, I was convinced I had it. I read about the ways of getting a diagnosis for this. I read about the tests that they do to rule it out. And I called my family doctor and I asked for, I guess, what's the most simple test that they do. It is a urine test where you urinate into a jug for 24 hours that has some acid in it, and then you hand it at the lab. So what they're testing for in this urine test is basically it's an acid called, it's abbreviated as 5-HIAA, which is 5-hydroindoleacetic acid. I think I'm saying it right. And in particularly, since neuroendocrine tumors can release a variety of fun, lovely hormones, one of the most common is serotonin. And when there is too much serotonin in your body, it will come out in excess in your urine. And so what I did was I peed into this jug for about a day. I handed it back in, and I unfortunately found out shortly after the test, when I went to go and see my doctor, that a normal person's 5-HIAA results, was supposed to be under 50 according to their lab, and mine was over 800, which was just, what do you say to that? I wanted an answer, but I wasn't so sure I wanted it to be this either. So from there, I was referred to another doctor, a surgeon. Some more scans and tests were ordered. Where I went to an appointment to see this doctor, where I was told, I mean, I already knew about the high levels of 5-HIAA in my urine, but I guess it was another thing to actually have a doctor say, you have a carcinoid tumor in your small intestine, and you have innumerable spots all over your liver, so many we can't even count them. What we believe that they are metastases. It has spread, it has metastasized to your liver. And when a tumor spreads and metastasizes to an organ, it's stage 4. It's basically incurable. I was 19, my mom was in the room with me, and she was leaning against the wall and she almost fell. My mom was just so broken. I remember the feeling when I heard that I had this weird disease that nobody had ever heard of. I remember just being so devastated. I remember standing outside the clinic after, waiting for my mom to go get the car and bring it around, and it was raining, and I just had my head just leaning against the window and thinking about my husband. He was my boyfriend at the time, and thinking about all the stuff that we had planned for the future. Thought about my education, because I was in school to be a social worker at the time. I'd only just been in it for a month, and I was already having a very, because of the health issues, I was struggling, and I knew I was gonna have to drop out of the program. I was just so excited about my future, and then all of a sudden, just this shit, it's shit. It just happened, and it uprooted my entire life, and nothing to ever be the same as it was ever again. And it was hard. It crushed me. It crushed us all. I don't even know exactly how I conveyed to my husband that I had this. It's all sort of a blur, honestly. I just remember going home and sitting down with him, and we just discussed it, and there was a lot of silence. But at the same time, there were words of encouragement that, we're gonna get through this. Of course, me finding out about what I had, decided to go and Google yet again, and I don't suggest reading all the WebMD and Mayo Clinic stuff on this cancer if you have it right off the bat, because there's a lot of really scary information on there. There's a lot of very disheartening information on there. I didn't think that I was even going to live through the year after reading all that information. But yeah, we cried, we prayed that we would be led to the right place at the right time to hopefully treat this in the best way possible, because that's what we were doing. We were treating it. There was no way of getting rid of it all at this point. And it was hard to believe at first, but eventually we got around to just, I guess, acceptance, the stage of acceptance. So after this, this was April 2015 now, I had an appointment with a surgeon. We discussed removing the primary tumor in hopes of helping relieve my symptoms. Removing the primary tumor didn't really relieve my symptoms at all, but I guess it was good to cut it out or whatever. So I had that done. After that, for about the following 4 months afterwards, I started to have these treatments on my liver. It was so full of tumors we couldn't cut them out, so I had to get something called embolizations. There are bland embolizations, where it's just radioactive beads that they shoot up the hepatic artery in your leg that kind of go up to your liver and helps to reduce some of the tumor burden, I guess. I had 4 of those done because they could only embolize a quadrant of the liver at once, because if they were to embolize it all at once, there was a high risk of me dying from a hormone crisis, or what they call a carcinoid crisis, which is a severe release of the hormones into your bloodstream, and it causes your blood pressure and your vitals to crash. It's not very nice to think about, as I'm sure you can imagine. Something else I need to mention is that my tumors didn't really respond. My tumors didn't really respond to the medications I was being given, which sucked so bad. And I had the weirdest symptoms, like even just talking to other people with this disease, no one else seemed to be able to relate to me in this, that I became allergic to like every single food. It was the weirdest shit. I was allergic to every single food almost, except for maybe just like I couldn't have yeast, so in bread, so we had to like, my husband, he, oh bless him, he made me like rice bread or anything that we didn't know exactly what the ingredients were, and I could maybe have like 10 things, 10 different ingredients, I mean, which I guess doesn't sound so bad, but it was mainly just vegetables and rice and bread was my food, and I couldn't go to restaurants anymore. And I love food. I love going to restaurants. Oh my gosh, it's like one of my favorite things. I couldn't do that. My heart would go nuts and my face would swell up, and that's what the shit that comes out of these tumors, that's sometimes what it causes. It could, like histamine, like all different types of amines that come out of the tumors, they can cause severe allergies, moderate to severe allergies, which is another thing. So I had the embolizations done. They didn't do a whole lot for my symptoms either, but they did reduce the tumor burden quite a bit, which was great. That really helped a lot, and after that, following that point, they were stable. But the crappy part is the symptoms were still too debilitating for me to really do anything. And so from that point, it was about summer 2015, and then all of 2016, we didn't do anything for the disease. It remained stable for the most part, not growing, but the tumors in my liver were just so active. With neuroendocrine tumors, they're not always active, meaning they don't always secrete hormones, but in my case, I do have the carcinoid syndrome, and they did secrete lots and lots of hormones, unfortunately, causing me to have just like really bad tachycardia, really bad flushing and stomach issues, and I couldn't leave my house. My heart rate would go up so high just all day, and I wouldn't be able to walk around. I would collapse in the grocery store on the floor. My blood pressure was a mess up and down, and this went on for most of 2015, all of 2016. Near the end of 2016, though, I ended up finding out about at Toronto General, they have a transplant program for organ transplants, and getting an organ transplant for neuroendocrine tumors, it happens. It's not very common. It's a very restrictive criteria. They have to, there has to be no visible disease outside of the liver and stability for at least a year. And it has to be a slow Ki-67, like a low Ki-67 growth rate of the cancer, like how fast it's growing. Thankfully, mine was always considered low grade, meaning not aggressive. It doesn't grow very fast. And so I saw miracle, met all those criteria. And I ended up 3 months from getting listed on January 2017, I ended up getting a liver transplant. And I didn't just get that liver transplant from anyone. I got it from a living donor who I had never met before. This is someone that, through my mom's church, had found out that I needed this transplant and had selflessly put himself through this procedure so that I could continue to live. And his name is Pete, and we're both very good friends now, to say the least, and I share everything with him, my medical struggles, and he shares with me. I know he's had some recovery complications in the past, and you know, we we try to keep each other up. We try to uplift each other. And I'm so thankful that I had somebody come forward to do this for me. I'll never forget that selfless act of kindness. So thanks to the transplant, I'm alive and I've enjoyed all these wonderful quality of life. Now I guess I'll get to where I am now. So I'll say that something I tried to explain to people for a while was that the liver transplant isn't a cure. There isn't really a cure for metastatic neuroendocrine cancer. It's not really, like, it can always pop up somewhere else in the body. You've got to be proactive with scans. I had a scan, let's see, January, February, May, June. About 8 months after my liver transplant, I got the best of the best in terms of neuroendocrine scans. It's called a gallium-68 dotatate scan. Gallium-68 dotatate is basically the gold standard when it comes to neuroendocrine cancer scans. It's a radiopharmaceutical tracer that binds to the, it's a tracer that binds to the tumors, and so if your tumors have the proper receptors and they show up on the scan, and then it's a pretty crystal clear picture actually. And so I had the gallium scan, had to go to the US and pay for it because here in Ontario we've had some major access issues. I had that done in fall, September of 2017, and it came back showing some spots. It came back showing a few spots outside of my liver, and then aside from outside of my liver, also in the chest area, which explains the heart stuff that I've been dealing with, because I had been getting some palpitations after my transplant. Nothing that was really super debilitating, but I've nonetheless still been getting some heart stuff. And it showed near the pericardiac tissue, and just kind of like by the heart. Not a lot, just like a few, like maybe a spot there, a spot like mediastinal area, and then like a spot outside the liver, very small. Keep in mind I've been getting CAT scans and MRIs, and none of these spots have been, still to this day, don't show up on CAT scans and MRIs, which really sucks because the gallium scan isn't just accessible to everyone, yet these tumors don't show up on the most basic of scans. So yeah, it's my province. Anyways, I rescanned this year, about almost 2 years later. In Montreal this time, I had to pay yet again, still not being able to access the one here. And so I got that done in Montreal, mainly because some of my symptoms were reoccurring. Unfortunately, near the beginning of the year, they started to really kind of go downhill. In terms of mainly just the heart stuff, mainly just like my heart rate shooting up to like a very high rate, and some flushing as well, and reactions to stress. And so I had the scan done. I had it done, and nothing new showed up on the scan. Like, it's not like cancer exploded and went everywhere, like people were warning me could happen with a transplant. But those 3 same spots that they grew slightly from about almost 2 years ago. They grew, and notably there is the spot which seems like it's located behind my heart. We don't know if it's a lymph node, we don't know if it's a spot, but it is a spot, and it is behind my heart, and it is estimated to be what is causing so many of the heart issues, which sucks because having your heart race uncontrollably and not being able to like exercise and really get your heart rate up without it like getting stuck like that, or like just doing weird crap, isn't very fun for someone who's young and likes to be active. But I mean, I'm dealing with it right now. I get a lot of heart tests done, like echoes and EKGs and things like that, and even though it just kind of goes nuts and runs away on me, it's nothing alarming in terms of arrhythmias. It's just uncomfortable and racing, and obviously something that we have to try and treat. So after numerous opinions, I decided that I'm likely going to be going for PRRT, which is a targeted radiation treatment. it's a targeted radiation treatment that binds to the, if you have the receptors, meaning that your tumors show up on the gallium-68, you are eligible for this therapy. I'm eligible for it, and it's safe to do with a transplant. I have these small spots of disease that are bothering me, and so ideally what this treatment will do will be, it'll shrink it. We're hoping it shrinks it. We're hoping it gives me no evidence of disease, even though you shouldn't go in hoping for no evidence of disease because it can be cause for disappointment. But mainly, I guess what I could say is I'm hoping it stops all my symptoms and it freezes the cancer and it stops spewing off hormones for the considerable future. Now we have this treatment available here. It's on a clinical trial basis, but after some talk with family, we're actually looking into the PRRT therapy in Bad Berka, Germany. I just contacted them, and apparently they're a lady who books out of country patients isn't back till the 5th, so I'll update you guys on what happens when I get in touch with her on the 5th and how long it will approximately take if I do decide to do the therapy there. They actually do it a lot differently. They actually do it a lot differently in Germany than they do in other parts of the world. They do, at my center, for example, they do 4 high doses, like 2 weeks apart. I don't know if it's 2 weeks apart. A few weeks apart, they do a high dose, and then they do all the doses at once. And then after you've had like the 4 to 6 cycles, you can't have any more of it. But they treat it a lot differently, and I feel like in a way that might be a lot safer for me in Germany, because not only have they actually done it on transplant patients and they have 25 years of experience, they, what's the word for it? They have all this experience, and they also do it in lower doses, and they space them apart at different intervals. Like there's people who will get 1 treatment or 2 treatments, and then it's having the desired effect, and so you don't go back to Germany for another one for like a year, or you send them your scan and your most updated scan, and they decide whether or not you should be coming back for more. And I kind of like that less aggressive way of treating it, because these aren't, in my case, aggressive tumors, right? They're not something that we need to be treating aggressively at the moment. I mean, I'd be lying if I said this disease isn't scary, but could it be worse? It could definitely be a lot worse. I'm hesitant to say that because, I don't know, knock on wood, knock on car, or whatever. I'm hesitant to say that because whenever I say it could be worse, it gets worse. But I'll just disregard, I'll pretend I didn't say that. It could be, I mean, I'm just thankful that even though I am still dealing with this, which I was warned that I would definitely be shown in reoccurrence, that I'm thankful that I'm still alive. I'm thankful that this disease doesn't grow very quickly or aggressively. I'm thankful that I have options. I'm thankful that I have my husband with me by my side, and I'm just, so many ambitions and so many things that I want to do in my life, and I'm just going to keep my eyes on those, and I'm going to keep praying, keep focused on God, and just try and stay strong. I think one of the things I get the most is you don't look sick, you look so well, and you're so healthy. And I mean, yeah, I'm thankful that right now I'm not looking too bad. I mean, am I a bit underweight? Yes, I've lost a little bit of weight. I'm trying to gain back. I've been dealing with periods of like maybe a week where I'm hungry and I'm starving, and then the next week I'm feeling weak, I'm feeling dizzy, and I just don't want to eat. And so during those times when I am absolutely starving to death hungry, I try to get as much food in me as I can. I'm trying very hard, but my body doesn't really like to absorb fats. That's another thing with, I don't know if it's more so the disease or if it's just the fact that I don't have a gallbladder, but I have to take enzymes now to try and get my body to absorb the nutrients because malabsorption kind of sucks. I hope that this video was informative. I hope that I can make some more I hope to make more videos in the future. I definitely want to spend a lot of time going forward raising awareness for neck cancer and just showing people that literally anybody can get cancer. I hope that this provided some answers, not only to all of you out there, but to even to people who know me, who've been and who have just asked me questions about my cancer that maybe I felt too complicated to answer at the time. Like, are you better, and is it cured, and stuff. I get asked that so much, guys. Like, are you cured though, or you're fine now? And I want to go along with them, and I do. I just, sometimes it's just, I don't feel like being the buzzkill. I don't feel like being that person who harshes the mood for the day by being like, actually, I'm still dealing with multiple tumors inside my body, and then lunch is ruined. So, yeah, I'm still fighting cancer. I have had cancer knowingly for going on 5 years now, and I've had cancer possibly since like the age of 10. I've been fighting cancer for a while. I'm going to continue to fight cancer even through all the positive and good things that I'm doing in my life, and you know, it's not such a bad thing. Just because I have this disease doesn't necessarily mean that I'm terminal. I'll do another separate video on that, actually, on like the prognosis and outlook for neuroendocrine tumors, because it's so patient specific, and again, this video is getting so long. But I mean, any questions that anybody has for me, if anybody wants to just send me a message, I'll leave my Instagram account details on the bottom there. You can also reply in the YouTube comments below, and I will do my best to answer any questions. I really hope this video was informative and that it helps somebody to become a little more knowledgeable on a topic that they may not otherwise have heard of. I apologize for the glottal fry that my voice has inevitably developed from talking so much in the heat. I get a very raspy voice sometimes after talking, and I don't even realize it. I'm gonna go inside now and drink some water and maybe go do something. Maybe go for a drive. I don't know. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys, so send me messages. Talk to me in the comments. Literally anything. I'm lonely. Come on, guys.